Hello and welcome everyone to this update webinar with Chalice Gold. My name is Jacob Willoughby and I'm a VP of Research here at Red Cloud Securities. Joining me live via the web is Alex Dorsch, who is Managing Director of Chalice Gold. We'll begin today's webinar with a presentation from Alex that will provide an overview of the company and update us on the results and program from its Pyramid Hill project in Victoria. After that, we can take questions from participants. I'd like to remind everyone that you can start typing in questions right now if you have them, or at any point during this webcast, and we'll get to as many as we can with the time that we have. As usual, we have to cover everybody's favorite, the disclosures. So I'll begin with, for Chalice Gold, there may be some forward-looking statements made during this presentation, and I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the company's corporate presentation, located on the company's website, which I believe is the same presentation they'll be using today. For Red Cloud Securities, please see the full disclaimer and disclosures on our website. And I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. Also, we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investment. Red Cloud specific disclosures related to Chalice Gold are the following. In the last 12 months, Red Cloud Securities has been retained under a service or advisory agreement by the subject issuer, and Red Cloud Securities or a member of the Red Cloud Securities team or household has a long position in the shares and or options of the subject issuer. Now, I'm very pleased to introduce Alex Dorsch, who will now tell us about Chalice Gold.
Thanks very much, Jacob, and thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks to the Red Cloud team for hosting us. So looking forward to hopefully presenting a relatively new story, a company that's having some great success in Australia, but is very much sort of under the radar, I believe still. We're a ASX listed junior company, as I said, based in Australia, so listed on the ASX as well as the OTC market in the US, and we're really at a bit of an inflection point. So thank you to those who have joined me tonight. So I'll kick off. As Jacob mentioned, those forward-looking statements are listed there. I encourage you to take a look at that offline. So we are a very unique, well-funded exploration business. We have a few characteristics listed there, which are quite unusual for a company of our size. We're exploring for very large-scale discoveries in new parts of Australia, real frontier provinces. We're looking for gold undercover in northern Victoria, a part of the world that is very interesting at the moment. And that's really off the back of some success by a Canadian company, Kirkland Lake Gold. So I'll take you through the detail of what we're up to there in Victoria later. We're also exploring up in the northwest of Australia in the Kimberley region for nickel sulfides. We have, as point 2 mentions there, we have the finances to think big. We've got approximately 30 million Australian dollars, which equates to about 27 Canadian. In working capital and investments, that equates to about 11 cents per share. So quite a unique set of circumstances for a company with a market capitalization of about $80 million to have that much capital in the treasury. We haven't raised any capital since 2011. Again, quite a unique set of circumstances. And I guess the reason why we've been able to do that is we have this track record. We've sold a number of assets generating over 100 million Australian dollars, and we've returned a third of that capital directly back to our shareholders. So it's a little bit of a different offering in the space, if you like. I should mention there as well that our financial position listed there is as of the end of September 2019, which is the first quarter of our financial year. We have a very tight capital structure, very strong financial position. So again, a quite unique situation with the executive chairman, a man called Tim Goyder, owning almost a fifth of the company. And then alongside him, Franklin Templeton, based out of San Francisco in your part of the world, owning over 10%. And then several other institutions owning 10%. The equity listings, as I mentioned, on the Australian market as well as the OTC, quite a tight capital structure. Our market capitalisation is now approximately $80 million at 29 cents, about 14.7 million in cash as of the last quarter, and as I mentioned, about 30 million in if you include our investments on top of that. Our 12-month share performance is listed there. As you can see, we've had some recent success, gained some real traction in the market, and that's really been on the back of what we're doing in Victoria. So Pyramid Hill, as you can see there, down the southeast corner of Australia in the state of Victoria, in those who are familiar with Kirkland Lake in the Fosterville neighbourhood. So our project's in the Bendigo zone of central Victoria. The Bendigo zone, for those who are aware, was a historic 60 million ounce producing region, basically mined out until in the 19th century, but now very much back on the radar. So that's that lighter green shade there is the outcropping zone, the South Bendigo zone. 60 million ounces came out of that zone at a very prolific average grade of approximately 15 grams per tonne. Importantly, 90% of that production had a recovered grade over 8.5 grams. So very, very high grade bit of real estate. The geology there is quite interesting. As you go into the north, you see there's a darker shade of green. That is where the geology dips undercover. So we know that same geology lies under a younger sedimentary sequence, and the Victorian government a number of years ago said there's approximately a 32 million ounce undiscovered endowment in that darker shade of green, but it surprisingly almost completely unexplored. So that's what Chalice really saw as an opportunity a couple of years ago when we went into this part of the world. It's now, very much back on the gold industry's radar with what's happening at the Fosterville gold mine. Last year, they produced almost 620,000 ounces at a cash cost of $150. So an unbelievable success story there just in the last couple of years. So we are, in a way, I guess, as part of what we're seeing here is quite unprecedented. It has all the hallmarks of being a new gold rush for Victoria, and luckily Chalice has positioned itself exceptionally well with 5,000 square k's that we staked in late 2017. So that was off the back really of Kirkland having some success there at the discovery of the Swan Zone. Some very impressive widths and grades they intersected there, and now that's led to Fosterville having almost 3 million ounce reserve at over an ounce per tonne, so about 32 grams per tonne. There is another major player in the area that's been there for a number of years, Hancock Prospecting. They've got an investment in our neighbour Catalyst Metals. We've had some, as I mentioned, looking at that 12-month share performance, we've had some early success on our very much greenfield targets. And really in the news in the last 2 weeks is the entry of Eric Sprott and Quinton Henney at Novo Resources. They've made a $8 million investment into one of our neighbours, Kalamazoo Resources, which owns the historic Castlemaine goldfield. So this is really, I guess, an inflection point for a province that had almost negligible gold production only 3 or 4 years ago. Now it has a tier 1 producer, and it's really gaining attention in the market. So this is our land position. We own 5,000 square k's in the northern Bendigo zone, which is quite an amazing area of land. That central Mucklefoot area on the figure there on the left for context is approximately 100 kilometres in length from north to south. You can see there's two world-class mines within the district. Fosterville there with the 2.7 million ounce reserve at 31 grams, and next door to that, Bendigo. So Bendigo was a historic deposit, essentially mined out by the late 19th century, almost 22 million ounces recovered gold there at a very prolific average grade of 15 grams. What's very unique about this is you can see the scale of the holding there held by Chalice. We're in very good company, and it's very well consolidated. Essentially, all the ground here, all the prospective ground, is held by a number of majors and juniors. Chalice being one of the largest holders in the mix. Obviously, that success that Kirkland have had at Fosterville has really changed the game for this district. If you recall the last slide, I showed you where the northern Bendigo was the area that was soil covered. That the onset of that cover is as you go north of that dotted purple line on that map. So you can see most of our tenure is covering that where areas of cover. It's variable thickness of cover, in some cases less than 30 metres, in some cases between 100 and 200 metres of cover. The two targets we're focusing in on at the moment are approximately 50 to 80 metres of cover. So it is highly variable. The cover was the main real detractor for historic explorers looking at this area, but really it's a manageable depth of cover. And certainly it's an unbelievable opportunity for a junior to hold such a large land package in such a prospective area. So obviously you could see on that last map, there's clear technical drivers as to why gold mineralisation would be in that North Bendigo zone. As I said, the Victorian government predicted about 30 million ounces of undiscovered endowment there. Of which Chalice has about 60% of that area under license. So as well as those technical drivers, the project really has strong commercial drivers. It's a new opportunity. This is very much unexplored terrain. It's a high-grade district. There's an operating mine, Fosterville, nearby. So there are really is a strong case for exploring this district. A very large area. You would have seen those north-south oriented structures on the previous figures. We know they continue to the north, and we have approximately 300 kilometres of unexplored strike length of those prospective structures. So this is not a single target play. This is not a single prospect play by any means. There is potential here for dozens of brand new discoveries. Importantly, Chalice owns 100% of that 5,000 square kilometres. We have no third-party encumbrances whatsoever. So that's, from a shareholder's perspective, that's a great position to be in. It doesn't get any better than that. Obviously, with the cover depth, that comes with the inability to see the rocks and slightly higher exploration costs. But we've brought in a brand new Aircore rig, and we're getting fantastic bang for our buck using that rig. So we've really brought in new equipment, which has changed the way people have viewed this covered area. And as you can see there on the left-hand side of that page, most of the ground is broadacre farming, either crop or grazing. It is essentially year-round access, and we maintain a very strong social license to operate with the local community. We have approximately 60 different landowners there that we have access agreements with, and really, there are no community impediments to us exploring out on these farmland. So essentially, what has Chalice been doing? We have been drilling. Well, as I said, we started exploration out here approximately 18 months ago. We've started with really wide-spaced, shallow, vertical Aircore drilling, and this is a representative cross-section of what we're trying to achieve by doing this. The gold lodes in Victoria can be relatively narrow, between sort of 2 and 10 meters wide. So that darker red shade there. What we're targeting with this wide space Aircore drilling that we've done so far is these secondary dispersion zones where gold is mobilized at the weathering interval of the basement. And then it plumes. So what it does is you get a wide area of low-grade gold as well as pathfinder elements. That's really what we're using as our primary targeting method to try and find a big new discovery under this cover. So we have two key target areas, as I said, under the cover. This is a bit of a 3D view of what we're dealing with. We have these prolific regional structures that dip to the west, and they are regional scale. They're very well understood, and the government has even shot 2D seismic over the entire state of Victoria to really understand these structures. You can see there that conceptually that Murray Basin sedimentary cover that overlies the prospective geology in that lighter blue colour. And what we're looking for is to follow these structures to the north, and we've had some success so far in defining two areas of gold anomalism at two targets. The first one I'll talk about is called Carry, the second one Ironbark. So a couple of native Australian tree species is our target name convention. So the first target, what we've defined thus far is over a 3 kilometre anomalous gold trend. So again, this is just Aircore drilling to the top of that basement, just to penetrate through the weathered part of that basement. And we've managed to define consecutive drill fences, as you can see on that figure on the left-hand side, over a strike length now of over 3 kilometres. So some of the distances between drill lines there are a kilometre, and we're in the process at the moment of infilling to 500 metre space lines. Where this is very, I guess, early days, but what we're seeing is highly encouraging results. So we've drilled on this target about 13,000 metres of Aircore, as I said, vertically through that cover and into that the weathered part of that basement. As you can see on the left-hand side there, that's a gold zone, an anomalous gold zone. This is 25 ppb plus, which is significant. So to put in context, background levels in the basement here are between 2 to 3 ppb. So these are significantly elevated gold values we're getting relatively over consecutive drill fences. And those who are familiar with Fosterville or Bendigo style of systems, this has all the hallmarks of that typical shallow plunge or doubly plunging anticlinal gold system. And obviously at the moment it remains untested at depth. It is wide open to the north and south. And as I said, we are infill drilling Aircore with the Aircore rig at the moment. And pleasingly, we just had our first diamond rig arrive on the property today. So if I could ask the guys to flash up a photo of that diamond rig. This rig was just mobilised into the property, and really what we're trying to do is take have an initial test at depth and look at the geology underneath these anomalous gold trends, and see whether we can define some structure, some stratigraphy, and really get ourselves oriented for hopefully a longer term drill program following that. I hope to show you a picture of that diamond rig later. This is a section through the northern part of that anomalous gold trend. You can see the grade numbers there are fairly modest, sort of from 70 ppb up to 460 ppb or approximately half gram gold. As I said, this is secondary dispersion. This is the gold that's shedding off primary mineralization. And so what we're seeing is very encouraging. We're seeing quite wide zones here, sort of 400, 500 meters wide. and they are very much open at depth and consistent along strike. The main trend there on the eastern side is, as I said, contiguous between these wide space lines. On the southern line there, which we're looking at a section of, we've got about a 500-metre wide interval, or 5 consecutive drill holes that are hitting this anomalous gold. So really promising to see this sort of results, because it does indicate that, you know, we're dealing with a strike extensive and a potentially large-scale system. So the footprint of that gold trend, our project there, our target on the right-hand side there, really this is to put this in context for investors. So 3 kilometres of strike is comparable to the superficial footprint of the Fosterville gold mine. Those open pits, those green shapes on the left-hand side, is the surface projection of what the open pits look like. So as you can see there, that along that main Fosterville fault that's running in a north-northwest orientation, you have these about 3 kilometres of strike of consecutive mineralised zones, and then obviously the real payday for Fosterville has been at depth, where they've gone deeper below the Harrier zone and then where it's plunged to the south, they've hit 2.3 million ounces there in that Swan zone in the reserve at the moment, and quite a prolific grade zone it is. So I guess this is putting it in context. I guess what we're dealing with here has the right sort of signature to deliver a tier 1 scale of deposit. So we think, you know, that's a significant size, you know, footprint, and the prize here is substantial. So just to the south of that Carry target, about 22 kilometres to the south of Carry, is a target called Ironbark. You can see in the little inset map there on the figure on the left, you can see that, you know, we are really still within the centre of our property. To put our property in context here, we're at a prospect called Ironbark North. We had our best intersection to date in late December. So I should mention as well, those results I showed you on the Carry target are very much new results. They've been released in the last 6 weeks. The Ironbark North results you're looking at here, these are within the last 4 weeks. And so we had our best intersection of 8 metres at 2. That included 4 metres at 3 grams over the western side of an intrusion. So if you look at the figure on the left-hand side, we've got a magnetic feature, which is a buried diorite intrusion. It has about 50 to 80 metres of cover above it. And we've only drilled 22 drill holes. These are the very first drill holes ever to intersect this target. And within that first program, we're hitting grades, you know, almost all approaching mineable grades. So it was hugely encouraging to see these results. The diorite we're looking at here has a footprint of about 700 metres by 400 metres. It is not an insignificant target size. It is however, quite new for the Bendigo zone. So we have 2 of these diorite intrusions of comparable size. We've now intersected gold within both of these diorites, and they are the first known occurrences of gold mineralisation within diorite in the Bendigo zone. So we've, I guess, ticked a technical achievement there. Really, these zones are completely wide open. We are really looking forward to the next round of drilling on this. We've got the Aircore rig going down and infill drilling on this target. And as I said, that the diamond program, we will have a approximately 300 metre deep initial geological hole into this target immediately after we've finished the first diamond hole up at the Carry target. So we've got three diamond holes to do. The first one is underway at the moment at the Carry target. Then the rig is moving down to this Ironbark North target, and then it's going to move approximately 1.5 kilometres to the south to the other diorite intrusion, where we've intersected up to 1 gram gold. And really, we're looking to really just get an initial picture of what we might be dealing with at depth. So really, the Aircore results here you're looking at is again, it's vertical drilling just to the top of that fresh rock. Before that's the limit of the Aircore penetration. The diamond holes will obviously give us that real first look at what fresh rock looks like. So looking at a section, an east-west section there through this diorite intrusion. So as I said, very high-grade gold in diorite is common in the eastern part of Victoria at a field called Walhalla Woods Point. However, this is the very first time in the Bendigo zone, so in that 60 million ounce geological domain, this is the first time gold has been intersected in diorite. And as you can see there on that figure, the diorite in green, we're hitting gold within it in quartz veins with associated sulfides, and we're hitting gold on the margins of the diorite. So it's unclear yet what's happening in terms of controlling that mineralization, but that's really the aim of the initial diamond hole is to understand what's going on. I mentioned that Walhalla Woods Point field in eastern Victoria. There was a very prolific gold field. One of the best examples of diorite associated gold deposits was a deposit called Cohen's Reef. It had 1.5 million ounces at 32 grams in a single line of lode. And that, if you put that in context, that's a half a Fosterville. And importantly, that intrusion, that diorite intrusion, was much smaller than the footprint of what we've got here at Ironbark North and Ironbark. So we think these are exceptionally high quality targets. We're very much looking forward to putting a deep hole into them. We don't know exactly what we're going to see as yet, but really a fantastic target style, and something we're really looking forward to seeing the results on. I think it's important as well to note that really this work we've done on this property has been achieved in approximately 18 months. We've drilled now over 60,000 meters of Aircore and really have hit this property hard. We've been largely doing that in the background, and really the excitement has now stepped up a gear with the real first the real ore grade intersections at Ironbark and at Carry. We're really sort of painting a picture of something really that could be big. So we are at a key inflection point with the company that's started to be reflected in our share price, which is fantastic to see. So I guess to summarize, you could probably guess this point. We're drilling things that have significant scale potential. These are the very first drill holes into the targets here in a prolific gold province. A discovery, if we make one, it really could make a company. We are well funded. I guess circling back to where I started in the presentation, we have about 30 million Australian dollars. That really gives us a lot of runway to keep exploring. And the team at Chalice has done it before. So we've got not only the technical skills in-house, we have that commercial track record. So it's really a unique combination for a junior company. And really, I think this is an exceptionally exciting time for investors. So I will wrap up the quick version there. So our contact details and social media links are on the slide there. I'd encourage you to follow us or to send us some inquiries, and I might hand over back to you, Jacob, to field some Q&A.
Great. So I'll remind everyone that they can type their questions in now, and we can get through as many of them as we have time for. And I'll give everyone a second to type some of those in. So I'll just ask Alex probably a question on a lot of people's mind. A lot of us have been following the situation with the wildfires. all over Australia. And first off, I hope your friends and family are still safe. And assuming they are, how have the situation with the wildfires affected any potential work that you are undertaking right now at Pyramid Hill?
Yeah, so fortunately, Jacob, the wildfires have been well to the east of us from our Pyramid Hill project there in Victoria. The fires were sort of further east towards the coast of Victoria. Yeah, obviously it's been a particularly bad season. So really we send our thoughts out to those affected. But yeah, luckily from the company's standpoint, we've been totally unaffected.
Okay. And I think we actually got a couple of very recent photos from you for the diamond drill. We can maybe pop those up now.
Excellent. Oh, that's the Aircore rig that we're using. Sorry, that's a little bit of a skewed image. This is the Aircore setup. This is a brand new rig that we mobilised over from Western Australia to really do this work, and it's a very, very capable machine. It's been very effective at getting through the cover, something that explorers before us who tried to tackle this northern Bendigo zone, something they really had failed to do effectively. So we've really set ourselves up here for success and really been systematic about working. There's our new diamond rig that's arrived just today. So it's great. It's been drilling since this morning. It really is an important, I think, milestone for the company, to get to a point where we're starting diamond drilling on essentially virgin ground in the space of 18 months. I think is been quite exceptional. Obviously, we have the financial resources to really, move aggressively. But what we're also doing is really being very systematic about what we do. So we're looking for the big one here. We're looking for the one that is really going to move the needle for investors.
Okay, great. Now, I had heard recently that there are going to be some new tenements opening up in the near future in this region, and I assume that you've had a look at some of these. Is this something that the company's potentially looking at?
Yeah, so there's a competitive tender underway at the moment. The Victorian government is releasing a land package in the area. We think it's going to be very competitive. There's a tier one gold mine in one of the best gold mines in the world, just near us, a stone's throw away. So some of that ground is very, very prospective. So we anticipate a very competitive process. We're going to put a good application in for a number of those blocks. I think we've shown that we've got a track record now of being able to make discoveries undercover. We've found ourselves a couple of gold zones really that hadn't been, no one was aware of before we started. So as well as that, we're keeping a good standing with the community. We're doing the right thing by the farmers whose properties we're working on. So I think we've positioned ourselves well in that process, and we'll be in the mix.
So in certain jurisdictions, it's not a situation where the ground just goes to the highest bidder. They take into consideration things like how active the company is and how likely they are to work the ground. Is that the case in Victoria as well?
Yeah, the evaluation is going to be on a number of criteria. I guess strategy, track record, work program is part of the story. Then community engagement, heritage, things like that. The softer side is also a significant part of the story. I think obviously the Victorian government is trying to attract world-class companies back into this world-class province. So so I think it's going to be very competitive. It won't be judged by work program alone, but it'll be on a very holistic basis. So I think given our standing in the state, I think we're in for a good shot.
Mm-hmm. Now, for some of our North American investors who might not be too familiar with Aircore drilling and why it is you're doing Aircore drilling in Australia now, most of the time they hear about Aircore drilling kind of in saprolite in West Africa and things, and
Yep.
there's not so much cover there, so they can get into, and then the saprolite is fairly soft, so the Aircore can drill into it. Whereas what you have is a different situation where quite often you have, as you mentioned, 100 to even 200 meters of cover. So traditional soil sampling, which people are probably very familiar with, is not going to pick up enough of a signature there when there's that much cover, right? And that's part of the reason why you're doing the Aircore drilling.
Yeah, I guess we'd like to make as big a discovery as possible in the shallowest possible cover. Obviously, there's commercial driver there to find something with as little cover as possible. But really, the targets we have are in that 50 to 80 meters of cover range, which is substantial. For in the context of places like Africa, parts of Canada. I guess for Western Australia, companies are now routinely drilling, beyond 100 meters of cover. I guess it's a reflection of the maturity of the greenstone belts here in WA. So we don't feel, as long as we've got the right equipment set up, and as long as we can really get through that cover effectively, which we've shown we can with the Aircore drilling, it's a fantastic exploration tool.
Yeah, and I'll just remind folks that the Aircore drilling that you're doing, once it reaches bedrock, solid bedrock, it'll only penetrate 2 or 3 or 4 meters. Is that approximately correct?
Yeah, look, if that, probably more like 1 meter, 2 meters. The weathered basement, obviously being a little bit softer and friable, it allows that penetration. But the rig is more than capable of drilling to about 180 meters vertically. So it's we don't have a restriction there. It's more the fact that when we do get to hard rock, that's the point at which the Aircore rig, the drill bit itself refuses, and then we're relying on really diamond or another technique to get deeper. So we've really sort of reached that point now where we've defined enough anomalism, enough secondary gold in the basement to get the encouragement to go deeper with some diamond holes.
Can you tell us a bit about the planned diamond drill program?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, each one of those 3 targets I mentioned, Carry, Ironbark North and Ironbark, they're going to get a single about 300 meter deep hole initially. And that's really just to orient ourselves. Obviously, we can't see the rocks, we can't see potential structure. We can infer the presence of structure. We obviously have a great geological model with there being so many historic deposits and so many historic mines to the south. But we're relying on those initial 3 holes really to just orient ourselves, make sure we're drilling in the right orientation. Before we really then either step up and do some deeper consecutive fences of diamond.
But you do plan on assaying part or all of those holes?
Yeah, that's right. We will assay, of course. So we'll orient the core. We'll make sure we get every piece of geological, stratigraphic, structural information from those holes. Obviously, statistically, it's probably unlikely that we'll poke straight through an ore body, but you never know. We're using what we know so far from this Aircore drilling to look at potentially more interesting areas where there might be structure, where the dispersion in that oxidized zone is stronger. So we are, I guess, targeting there with the diamond.
Okay, great. And before I forget, I'm just going to give a plug for our website. So if you want to learn more about Chalice Gold, you can visit our website, which is redcloudfs.com. And all you need to do is register there and give a a name and an email, and then you can access the research we have there. We've also recently updated all of our company pages, and so I encourage everyone to take a look. We've been getting a lot of great feedback on that. Another question from online asking about some of your other properties or holdings. If you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah, sure. I didn't mention them today, but we have a very large exploration play in the northwest of Australia, in the Kimberley region. We're looking for nickel sulfides again in a place where not much work has been done. Unfortunately we're limited there with the field season. It is a wet and hot part of the world at the moment. It's really not until May, June that we'll be able to get access back to that property. We've got some real geophysical targets there for nickel. We're next door to a previous discovery by another operator, so we're hopeful of getting in there and finishing that geophysics program and doing some drilling in the middle of this year. So that's the other real key project in the portfolio. We've got a couple of investments in the company. We sold, those who may be familiar with our properties in Quebec. We sold those in the middle of last year to O3 Mining, a spin-off from a Cisco. So we currently hold 3.1 million O3 Mining shares as consideration for that. We did keep a partial royalty on some of that ground east of Val d'Or that we own. So that holding is worth about 9 million Australian dollars at the moment. And then we hold a position in a company called Spectrum Metals, which has made a recent high-grade discovery in Western Australia. We liked what we saw there. We were willing to go and buy on market. We saw a clear, an undervalued story there that was unfolding. And there again, that position is now worth approximately 9 million Australian dollars. We own 7% of those two companies. So that's what makes up that $30 million in working capital and investments.
Great. I don't think we have any further questions at this time. So I think I'll thank Alex, and we can wrap up there. Particular thanks to Alex, who's working well outside of his normal hours as he's in Australia. And I'll remind folks that normally we do our weekly webinars now at 2 p.m. on Thursdays. Obviously, we adjusted it so that Alex wouldn't be doing it in the middle.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Like I said, you can access our research on Chalice, which we're very excited about. We also have research on O3. As Alex mentioned, I've actually visited site up in Val d'Or in December, and was very pleased with the team there and what they're doing. And without any further ado, I'll thank everybody for tuning in, and thank those who are going to tune in for the replay. And eventually we'll have this available in a broader network down the road. And we'll leave it there. Sign off for now.
Thanks very much, Jacob, and thanks everyone for tuning in.
Great.